Closed for the season, Chapter 6. Arthur showed up after lunch, just in time to wolf down at least a half a bag of fancy chocolate chip cookies, the expensive kind Mom usually doles out 2 at a time. I guess I'd have to say these are better than the grocery store brand Grandma buys, he admitted. As he reached for another helping, Mom snatched up the bag and put it in the cupboard, slamming the door a little more forcefully than necessary. "Let's go outside," I said, hoping to preserve the peace. Although Arthur didn't realize it, he was perilously close to being sent home in disgrace. Unaware that he had done anything wrong, Arthur followed me to the back porch. "How about riding our bikes to the magic forest?" he asked. "Well, how far is it?" Arthur shrugged. "A couple of miles, I guess." We pedaled down Navajo Street to Route 23 West. As we neared the Toot and Tote convenience store on the edge of town, 5 boys about my age came outside carrying big cups of soda. The minute they spotted Arthur, they surrounded his bike and mine. "Hey, it's Art the Fart," a lanky redhead said. A mean-faced kid wearing a faded t-shirt grabbed Arthur's handlebars. "Cool bike," he said. "Where'd you find it?" "At the junkyard." "Remove your filthy hands from my bicycle," Arthur said, in what could only be described as a snooty voice. "Who's going to make me?" Mean-faced asked, looking even meaner if that was possible. Then the redhead noticed me. "Hey, look, Arthur's got a friend." The boys lost interest in Arthur. "What's your name?" Mean-faced asked me. "Where do you live?" "His name is Logan," Arthur answered for me, which was just as well because my mouth had gone dry. "He lives right next door to me." "You live in my grandma's house?" Mean-face dropped his voice a few notches lower. His face was so close to mine that I could see the pores in his skin and the anger in his eyes. "She was murdered there." "Did you know that?" "From the look on his face, you'd think I'd killed his grandmother. Arthur told me," I managed to say in sort of a squeaky voice. "Arthur told him." Mean-face turned to his friends and laughed. "Arthur the idiot told him. Arthur the moron told him." They took it up like a chant. The words ran together, losing their meaning, making my head hurt. "Arthur the told him, Arthur the told him, Arthur the told him." While they chanted, they tried to yank my bike away. One cuffed my helmet. Another snatched my water bottle. Just as I toppled off my bike, somebody grabbed Mean-face and gave him a shake. "Hey, what do you think you're doing, Danny?" It was Johnny O'Neill. The other boys backed away. "Nothing," Mean-face muttered. "Just kidding around," the redhead kid added. "That's all." "Imbeciles." Arthur spoke just loud enough for the boys to hear. Very smart, I thought, despite proof he was a true genius. "You okay, Logan?" Johnny asked. "Yeah, sure." I got to my feet and straightened my helmet, picked up my bike, and stuck the water bottle back in its holder. My left knee was scraped and bleeding, but I didn't mention it. The boys lingered in a tight little gang, watching us, ready to run if they had to. "Have you started working for Nina yet?" Arthur asked Johnny. Johnny glanced at Arthur. "Who?" "Nina Stevens, the reporter from Richmond, the one who's working on Mrs. Donaldson's murder." "Oh, yeah, Nina the reporter. Good-looking lady." He tossed a strand of dark hair out of his eyes and grinned. "Couldn't do it. I'm working 2 jobs already, delivering pizza and helping Logan's dad. I gave her Billy Jarman's number. He's always looking for work." "You gave that bum Nina's phone number?" Arthur stared at him in disbelief. Johnny tapped Arthur's bony chest with one finger, just enough to hurt. "Hey, kid, you watch what you say about Billy. He's my cousin, you know." Arthur backed away and straddled his bike. "Come on, Logan," he muttered. Johnny gave his shoulder a playful punch and headed into the convenience store. "Tell your dad I'll be by this afternoon to finish the lawn," he called from the door. Mean-faced Danny and his gang had regrouped under a tree on the edge of the Toot and Tote parking lot. The redhead gave me the finger, but I pretended not to see. Arthur was already several yards ahead, pumping hard, and I pedaled after him. Since the boys didn't have bikes, they couldn't follow us. That was a big relief. "Danny Phelps is my #1 enemy," Arthur said. "He hates me because I'm smarter than him and all of his family put together. He's the dumbest kid in Bealsville. If a teacher could stand him for more than 1 year, he'd be lucky to be in 2nd grade. "Why did he say I live in his grandmother's house?" "Well, because you do. Violet's his mother, and Silas is his old man." And Arthur turned his head to grin at me and almost rode off the road. Swerving away from the ditch, he added, Danny was nicer before his grandma was murdered. In fact, he was almost human. Believe it or not, we used to play together when he was staying at your house. You know, those times when Violet had to get away from Silas. Arthur frowned. Of course we were little then. By grade school, I had figured out that he was a dope. Out of town, Route 23 turned into a narrow highway with more curves and hills than a roller coaster. Trucks and cars whizzed past as I struggled uphill and wobbled down, braking to keep from going too fast. I couldn't understand how Arthur managed to get ahead of me on a 3-speed bike. Worse yet, the road's shoulder was narrow, overgrown with weeds, and littered with stuff thrown from car windows, beer and soda cans, bottles, plastic bags, fast food wrappings. We had to ride on the edge of the asphalt most of the time. Houses got farther apart, and we were soon in the farm country. Rolling hills stretched away toward the mountains. Cows lay in the shade, chewing their cuds, looking thoughtful. Now and then a dog barked. The air smelled of honeysuckle and grass cut and diesel fumes. If it hadn't been for the hills and the traffic and the heat, it would have been a great ride. After an hour or more, we reached the top of the hill. Below us, we saw a fake stone castle wall with towers. Near the road, a life-size statue of old King Cole perched up on the top of a tall sign that said, Welcome to the Magic Forest. The statue's paint was faded, his body was cracked, and he was missing an arm. The other arm pointed at a sagging red gate. Over it, a tilting green dragon, minus a tail, stood guard, grinning a goofy grin. On the gate, a sign riddled with bullet holes said, Closed for the season. Arthur sped down the hill, holding both of his skinny arms above his head, something I didn't dare do, and he was yelling, Wahoo! Wahoo! Are you crazy? I hollered, but he was already at the bottom, screeching to a stop in the weedy parking lot. The gate of the park was padlocked, but Arthur led me to a narrow path running along the sagging chain-link fence, posted with no trespassing signs and red notices warning that the property was condemned as unsafe. Hiding our bikes in the bushes, we followed the fence into the woods, trying to see what was on the other side. But it was no use. A wild green vine draped everything, the fence, the trees, telephone poles. It's a jungle, I said. Kazoo, Arthur said. It's growing all over everything. Warming to the subject, he elaborated, Kazoo, the killer plant, engulfs entire buildings, towns, trains, cars. It's unstoppable, indestructible, determined to conquer the world. Soon, okay, stop. I gave Arthur a shove and he staggered back, giggling. It's true, he said. Once it gets started, Kazoo takes over. Grandma knew this man who never left his house, too lazy to do anything but lie around all day. One day he decided he just had to go to the store, but when he opened the door, all he saw was Kazoo. He didn't have a hatchet or a chainsaw, so he was trapped. And pretty soon it oozed under the door and through the windows. Now you'd never even know there was a house there. What happened to the man? I don't know. I guess he's still in there. Oh, that's not true, I said, annoyed at myself for almost believing him. Well, ask Grandma. You didn't believe me about the murder either. I followed him deeper into the jungle. At last, we came to a gap in the fence, just enough for us to squeeze through. Another bullet-ridden no trespassing sign hung over our heads. Arthur wiggled through the hole anyway. How about the sign? I pointed at the red words printed on a rusty white background. He shrugged. I've ridden my bike out here lots of times, and I've never seen a watchman or a guard dog or anything, except maybe some teenagers fooling around. It's a great place to pretend you're searching for through the ruins of ancient civilizations, just like Indiana Jones in the movies. I hesitated, but Arthur was already vanishing into the kazoo. Taking a deep breath, I followed him into the magic forest. It was the first time I'd ever trespassed, and I couldn't help thinking I had just taken a step into a new and dangerous life.